All right. I am here with Andrew Hulbert, and he is an exited founder and currently full-time dad. How's it going, Andrew?
Really good. Thank you so much for having me on. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah. I'm excited to kind of get to the successes that you've seen. But before we get there, let's talk about your background. How did you get started?
Yes, a long question. I'll try and keep it short. I am proper, what we say in the UK, working class. So dad was a factory worker, mum was a supermarket worker. I managed to scrape into university by the skin of my teeth, went into a graduate scheme after I finished. And then when I got to about 27 years old, I realized corporate life wasn't going to be for me. I didn't like working in big organizations. And I left and I set up a property services business or facilities management business from my bedroom, age 27. Over about 9 years, we managed to grow that business from literally me in my bedroom on my own to around a 50 million turnover business and 500 staff. And across that time, we had 2 private equity exits, one in 21 and one in 23. We raised about $100 million in private equity investment through that time, which we took. And I retired at the age of 37. Last couple of years, I've been a full-time dad. I'm 39 now. I did the very English thing of buying a big farm over in Oxfordshire in UK. And now I do things like make jam and sourdough and ride on a quad bike and all those wonderful things. But in a nutshell, that's the story. Many stories in between there. But yeah, that's me.
Nice. Making jam and sourdough. Love it.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about sort of the business. You scaled it over 9 years and up to 50 million. Let's talk about how you prepared for, you said multiple different PE transactions. So how did you prepare the business for those?
Yes. Look, the first time, if I'm honest, so we got to about maybe 18 million, 20 million turnover the first time. And we knew that we wanted to try and release some of the value that we created in the business. Because I think when you start a business, it's not worth anything. And then all of a sudden you realize it is worth something and you may want to take some of that risk off the table, as we would say. So the first time we didn't really prepare. We went to a corporate advisor and said, hey, here's our business. Can you go out and try and find somebody that may want to invest in it? And at that stage, we didn't know if it would be a private equity or it would be a trade sale. So someone would buy us out completely. We ended up going down the private equity route. We got about 18 million pounds in total for that deal, which we took. And then that helped to sort of just de-risk the situation for us. But then I committed to do another 3 years of really hard work with them to grow the business again. And we then grew the business from, say, 20 million turnover to 15 million turnover that second time. And then we made a great return on exit for everybody as we went through that second process. How we prepared the second time was I was your founder, CEO, running absolutely everything. And I didn't want to be part of the longevity of the business after this second deal had been done. I sort of had put my heart and soul into it for nearly 10 years at that stage. And that was enough for me to sort of say, I've had a go, I've made some money, I'm going to go and chill out for 5 minutes. And I had my kids joining as well. So we hired a whole new C-suite prior to us going to exit. So we had the first private equity investment. We then invested about £1 million into overhead to make sure that we had a brilliant C-suite of a new CEO, a new CFO, a new chief commercial officer, operational officer. So we had the whole suite and the whole team that could take that business from, say, a £50 million business to a £500 million business into the future. So we really prepared by hiring the right people and moving me out of the spotlight. As many founder CEOs, we are the face of the marketing, we're the face of the brand, we're the face of doing the interviews when you're tendering for work with different clients. So I just pulled myself right back. I moved to a non-exec position and I supported the board to make sure that we still ran a great business. But we knew I wasn't going to be part of the sale the second time round, and we prepared for that. That worked really effectively for us. The challenge, of course, is hiring a CEO who is almost as good as you were as the founder, and that's obviously a challenge that comes with it. But yeah, we had a great time, we hired a great team, and we managed to get through that next exit as well.
Very nice. Wow. So with the PE sort of liquidity events, I think a lot of people talk about secondaries and stuff like that, where you're basically de-risking yourself. There's sort of a controversial takes around it, and I'm a firm believer in just de-risking yourself so that you can then focus on growing the business and not just like scrambling to make ends meet on your own as a founder. So I really like that you actually had that playbook play out where you took some risk off the table and then doubled the business, or
Yes.
more than doubled it?
Well, we grew the business. We exited for a 420% increase from the first time. So yeah, we had a sizable increase the second time in the 2 years that we grew it.
Yeah. So everybody out there listening that doesn't agree with secondary sales and stuff like that, for founders to take risk off, this is a great case for why it's important to do it.
And by the way, if I may, I still own 7% of the business today. When the business sells again in the future, that 7% may be worth more than the first 2 deals put together if the growth is significant. So I may even have a tertiary sale of almost the same shares as I go through. So yeah, private equity can be a very valuable thing for founders to do. But of course, you start to lose control because private equity want to run things in a certain way. But it depends how much share you relinquish to them, what role you're going to have in the business moving forward. I do think, though, when you get your big payday or your beach money, if you are going to hang around and still be like a non-exec or whatever it is that you're going to do within the business, you do need to accept that you've made your money, you've done things your way, someone has paid you for the value of that, and you can't continue to run things your way forever. And as the business makes decisions that you wouldn't necessarily agree with, that's not really your problem to have. You just need to keep guiding them on what's the best decision to make, because otherwise you can't have your cake and eat it, as they say. You've sold your soul, and you need to be comfortable with that decision. So yeah, it can be difficult, as founders know, but you just need to find the right partners, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. The classic disconnect of having 30, 40 million dollars in your bank account with the boss sometimes doesn't really work out too well. And I think a lot of people on the pod previously have talked about that, like just discomfort of that scenario that you just have to be okay with and get comfortable with. So let's shift gears to timing. So we touched on a couple different things there. You brought up kids, which is a very crucial chapter, myself included in that fatherhood gauntlet as well. And I think when it comes to why you sold when you did, let's talk about that first. And then let's talk about general. When is the right time for people listening to sell?
For me, actually, and I hate to say it, but it was COVID that really changed my my mindset, I guess, to some degree. My daughter was born in 2019. I was running 1,000 miles an hour when she was born. So I was doing like probably 95% of my time out the house. I mean, honestly, I'm happy to talk about it. I used to come home at 6:45 p.m. every day. I'd give her a bath for, say, 15 minutes. I'd hand her back to my wife, and then that's it. I did nothing else outside of that. On the weekends, I would do a little bit more. And I did that for maybe 18 months before COVID came along. And then COVID came, and we also had our son during COVID as well. And I was there 95% of the time. And like my perspective just completely changed, because all of a sudden I sort of realized what I'd been missing out on as a father. I think entrepreneurship for me was all encompassing. It just consumed everything that I was doing. And until I really felt like the warmth and the glow and the sort of the cuddling of being with the kids and being there a lot longer, that's what changed my mindset. And after we came out the back of COVID, so we did our first private equity deal in the middle of COVID. And I pretty much said to them, look, I will give you 3 more years of my life. I will make it worth your while to give me this money and trust that I'm going to help you grow the business. But after 3 years, I'm not going to be interested any longer, because I don't want my kids to get too old before I can sort of keep connected to them or lose connection with them completely. So for me, children and COVID was the catalyst, because I just found something different. Now, look, in those 2.5 years, it ended up being between 2021 and 2023, I did work very, very hard, but I did manage to get some sort of balance back, certainly on weekends, to make sure that the children were playing a more important part in my life. And then after I exited, children became my entire life. And, I'm almost a full-time dad at the moment, which I love, by the way, because I found warmth and joy and success in parenthood in a way that I could never do in entrepreneurship. And that's been amazing. For general advice for people, I'm not religious or spiritual, but I believe about those conversations that you have in your soul and just what's going on with you internally. I think sometimes there's just a feeling that the time is right. You look around you. I often think, what are you still sacrificing, or what are you missing out on that means you're still focusing on the business more than the things you want to be doing? And when you get to a point where you're starting to sort of beat yourself up a bit that you're missing out on those things, that's maybe when it's time to start thinking about the sale. And by the way, as we know, sometimes sales can take a year, 18 months, 2 years. They're not always very quick. So sometimes you need to have that sort of forward thought about what you may be feeling into the future. But I believe it's an emotional thing. And I think it's about just understanding when's the time going to be right for you. You will speak to 1,000 people that tell you, oh, that wasn't enough money, or you gave away too many shares, or that was the wrong time, or you sold too early. Who cares, right? It's about you. It's about what's going on in here. It's about whatever you're comfortable with. And I think that's good advice. I think have a think about what works for you. Don't worry about everybody else's opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And when it comes to the timeline, you touched on it there. How long did the transactions take? The first one and the second one?
Yeah. The first transaction from when we had the offer to doing the deal was about 6 months. Mm-hmm. So it's about a 6-month process. The second transaction from when we had the offer to when the deal was done was about 6 weeks. We did the second one very quickly because there was certain timeframes that everyone was trying to hit. In the UK, the government keeps changing the entrepreneurs' tax relief rules and capital gains tax rules here. So there were lots of entrepreneurs scrambling to sell businesses before the government changed the taxation. Now, we sold in November and the tax changes weren't going to come in until April the following year. But it certainly gave us an incentive to try and make sure that we were doing stuff. But yeah, 6 months and 6 weeks is what it took us on the 2 deals.
Got it. And the first one, was it like a earn-out structure? How did they do it? Was it all up front and then to de-risk you and kind of attach it to a second option for them to buy?
Yeah, no, on both deals, it was all up front. And so there was no earn-out. There was just a commitment from me on the first occasion that I would stay for a, say, 3-year period to grow the business. Nice. I think what I could see very clearly was that although we, say, sold for 18 million, 20 million pounds the first time round, there was a lot more value to be created. And the fact that we managed to, grow that by 400% over the next 2.5 years just showed that there was more value. So it was a little bit of a risk on the private equity side because I could have just turned my laptop off the next day and never gone back in. But they sort of, investors make this sort of idea that how much money is enough money for you not to come back to work the next day. And again, that's for all of us to consider. Is your number $5 million, $10 million, $20 million? Like, what is it? We're all different in terms of what we want. So I think they made a risk assessment on me, if you like, that I'd taken a certain amount of million off the table already. Would I still come back the day after? And I did, but I knew that there was a great load more value to create. And I knew that I could do that within 3 years. So, yeah, that's how the deals were structured. But we did get all our money up front on both occasions.
Nice. Beautiful. Well, when it comes to the valuation, we've kind of thrown around some numbers a little bit here. But for people listening, when it comes to putting your best foot forward first, and you're coming into a conversation with, let's call it these PE firms that came in and bought the business, what are some things that people can do to drive the valuation and get that leverage to really show their value?
So look, this is an obvious one, but finances, like you just need to understand your finances really effectively. So having a good CFO or a fractional CFO, however you do your numbers, you need to understand what's your monthly management accounts, where is your profitability being made, what's your cash flow position. If you have a services business like we did, so our contracts were, say, 5 to 7 years in length. So having all of those modeled in, what's the waterfall effect of when they all fall off, and what's the risk to the investor if none of them renew, which we had amazing renewal rates, so it was never a problem. But investors always think about downside risk. So it's always about what's the possibility that could go wrong. So certainly for us, having a decent CFO was just gold. And that would be my number one piece of advice. Get a CFO that's excellent, because they are going to bring in a due diligence company that they're going to pay $250,000 to go and look at your business and try and do the due diligence on. And you need someone on your side that can bat away those challenges that come from the financial due diligence on an immediate basis. So that was absolutely critical. The other thing that we did really strongly on both deals was really focus on our marketing in the lead up to the deal. So we predominantly did our marketing on LinkedIn. So what we would do is, if we knew we were going out to the market, any like press release that we could do about positive news, we would systematically make sure that there was like one good news story a month, that when people started to come and look at our business and due diligence our business, they could go back through our LinkedIn saying, go, oh, wow, they won a contract with X, they won a contract with Y, they won a contract with Z. You can really see like the momentum that's going on with that. And investors love momentum. If you can somehow start to show them that you've had 3 good years, you've grown, I don't know, 15% year on year or whatever, your profitability is growing with it, and you can tell this story that you're going on a journey and you're winning more brilliant customers and your sales is going up. It's all about the art of the storytelling on that, because if you can capture the investor's imagination that look what we've done so far and look where we are going, that's the bit that can really create some value. And you almost need to be romantic in that story around, look at all these great things that have been going on. So for us, we very deliberately went and made sure that we had positive stories. We went out to all our customers and said, oh, hey, we've never done a press release with you. Could we do a really basic one that just shows that we're working together? And most of them said yes, gives you loads of stories. And also, we did a lot of awards. So we won, say, 45 odd awards in our time, external awards for the business. Awards are a great way to get a tick in the box to show that people outside of your sector think that you're good enough and that you're very positive and very strong. And they're just an externally validated way to create positive noise. So I think you have to have the finances in order, because fundamentally that is what businesses are purchased from. But you also can create this story of the journey that you're going on. And that's through marketing, that's through articles, that's through press releases, that's through awards. And you just need to sort of build that whole story together and let the momentum keep chugging away. And the only final bit I'd say is then when you meet the investors the first time, and I probably met 50 investors in total for the 2 deals that we did. I had so many steak dinners in Mayfair in London. You just need to focus on making sure everything you've said on your marketing and your story and your website and your journey comes across times 10 when they meet you in person, because you need to be enthusiastic, you need to be positive, you need to show the art of the possible, you need to take this forward from where it is now, and you can really get people excited about it. Because if they're going to give you tens of millions of dollars, you want to make sure that they're excited about the journey. And that's also how you can accrete your multiples as well, because people don't want to feel like they're missing out. They don't want to be the one that forgot to invest in Google or something like that, right? And you're sort of starting to tell that story for them as well.
Mm-hmm. Got it. My favorite topic, mistakes.
Oh.
the best topic of all, that mistakes and failures are learning lessons, as like all the sort of cliche statements online are. But this is always my favorite to dig into, and it could be mistakes that you made throughout the transaction or ones that you've sort of followed as well to try not to make. But what can you share with the listeners about?
I can give you a real example. So the first time we sold, look, we'd grown this business from my bedroom to, say, a £20 million turnover business, and we had no idea what the value of it was. We'd never grown anything so successfully before. I was very green. I was a new entrepreneur. I was only 6 years into it. So we went out and we tendered for advisors to come and sell our business, corporate advisors, and we chose a company called Quantuma. Quantuma, amazing business. We probably thought, this is true, the business was worth maybe £6 million, something like that, because we didn't know what we were doing. So Quantuma said, okay, no worries. We think we can sell it for 9 million, and we'll set the ratchet level of our bonus at 10 million. And we were like, okay, fantastic. There's no way we're ever going to get more than 10 million for this business. And then we ended up getting 18 million pounds for the business because they knew it was much more valuable than we did. So although, of course, we were absolutely delighted, and a story I tell, and I will never forget it, the first time we had the offers, I went to bed and I opened an email at about 11 o'clock at night on my phone, and there were 8 offers in there for between 14 to 20 million pounds for the business. We thought it was worth 6. So, like, of course, you're ecstatic because you're getting 3 times what you thought you were. But the people that were really rubbing their hands together were the corporate advisors, because their ratchet started at 10 million pounds. So their bonus growth was between the 10 and 18 million, and they made a fantastic return themselves as well. Now, I would argue, look, if we thought it was worth 6 and we sold it for 18, you really can't argue about the pounds and pence that go into that. But a little bit of advice would just be maybe just try and get some advice on what you think the business may be worth first before going to appoint corporate advisors, and then set your ratchet somewhere in between there. But I wouldn't have changed a thing. They did a great job. We got a fantastic deal that first time round. But yeah, just be careful on those ratchets. That was definitely a mistake that we made, but I probably wouldn't change it now.
Nice. Yeah, no regrets. I love that. That you got feeling like 3 times worth what you thought it was worth. And it's a great example of the incentives where the people giving you the advice are incentivized to set those ratchets. And it's so complex and hard for an individual to operate during an exit like that, where you have your team, you have all of these people around you. You can't really share too much information throughout, and who you can share things with. It's just like this mental gymnastics that is very superhuman almost to go through.
And let me just give you a little kicker on there as well. It was only, you're absolutely right. It was only me and one other person that knew about the sale the first time round, me and the CFO, a guy called Bill, that was like my right-hand man. But it meant that I was working like 20-hour days consistently for about 6 months to sell the business, because I had to do everything myself. Let's just say they said, right, we want a list of all 200 of your staff, and we want their social security numbers, and we want their salaries, and we want this, and we want that. I had to go to the system to pull it out because nobody else knew what was going on. And actually, that was a real drain on time. And of course, you just end up sleeping less and less and less. And every night at about 10 o'clock, I used to order food to be delivered to my house because I knew that I would still be awake. And it was like my 4th meal of the day, like the 10 o'clock meal. That's not good for your health. That's not good for your sleep. And actually, it really wasn't a positive experience from like a mindset thing, because I was just out of control trying to sell the business. So after the deal was done, I managed to sort of get all of that out the way, and you need a bit of recovery time afterwards as well. But definitely a piece of good advice that I didn't get right the first time was look after your body. Look after your body, what you're putting in it. Be careful with alcohol, with cigarettes, all that sort of stuff. Just focus on the well-being of your body, because you're going to need it more than you ever have done in those stressful periods. And I ended up the second time in the run up to the deal, I lost about 120 pounds in the lead up to the deal, because I really focused on being healthy. I dropped alcohol, I dropped caffeine, I dropped sugar, and I just focused on making sure the business was sold. Dropped 120 pounds. Wow. And then my wife said, look, you are not attractive at this skinny weight. I need you to put some weight back on. So I thought, okay, I'll eat a few more donuts and come back up again. But I think that's really important advice. Don't forget to look after your body, because you're going to need it at that stage.
Well said. Love that. And also, with people listening, advisors that are not incentivized throughout that process, where you can just have a sounding board, have somebody to talk to that isn't, setting ratchets, right? Like they're just there to talk to. Everybody that I've talked to, and myself included, that is one of the most valuable pieces to these things, because you can't talk to anybody really about the deal in the company. So it's a very difficult thing. But that takes us to the finale. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell Andrew 10 years ago?
I'd probably just say strap in, because it's going to be way more of a fast growth roller coaster than you can ever anticipate. Look, we were very lucky. We only had positives, right? We grew every year between like 15% and 300% each year. We managed to do 2 private equity deals that we were really happy with, and the money that we released as well. It doesn't mean it was easy. It sounds glamorous and it's wonderful to sit here as a millionaire on a farm and tell the story, but actually it was intense. I lost relationships with friends through that time. I really focused on just growing the business, and that was my core value of what I was doing. So I think the thing I would just say to myself is just get ready. Be prepared that you're going to go all in on this. It's going to be okay in the end, but you're going to have some challenging times throughout, and you just need to understand that you are going to sacrifice to actually achieve something here. And really, the last couple of years, what I've been trying to do is go back and repair those things that I sacrificed in that time, and certainly with my friends, and making sure that, we're going on holiday together and we're spending more time together and seeing each other's kids and all that stuff that goes with it. But strap in for the ride, because it's going to be a roller coaster.
Well said. So where can people find you and connect with you today?
So two main places, LinkedIn. So I'm just / Andrew Hulbert is my main channel, but also _ Andrew Hulbert on Instagram. I do a lot of business podcasting on there. You can listen to in depth to some more of the stories. But yeah, I'd love to connect. So please do reach out.
Right on. All right. Well, wherever you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, the links that Andrew mentioned will be in the show notes. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom, Andrew.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.